On the broadcast tonight, North Korea proposes halting all military hostilities between the two Koreas starting next Friday, while requesting that the South cancel its annual South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises. A committee in Korea's parliament adopted a resolution condemning Japan's review of a 1993 apology over the forced sexual enslavement of women during World War II. President Park is racing against time to win back support before the July 30th by-elections after two failed attempts to appoint a new prime minister dealt a fresh blow to the president's popularity ratings. And Day 18 of the 2014 FIFA World Cup featured two more round of 16 fixtures taking center stage with two more quarter-finalists decided as a result. We'll have the names of all the biggest winners and losers from the day. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 6 in Sao Paulo, and 6 p.m. on Monday, the 30th of June here in Seoul. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. It's arguably the greatest test of President Park Geun-hye's leadership thus far, with her approval rating plunging after her administration's poor handling of the ferry disaster in April and her failure to find a suitable prime minister.
Well, this has many wondering whether she has enough time to push through with her envisioned reform drive and help the ruling party improve its chances in some critical by-elections at the end of July. Our Ji Myung-gil starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye is racing against time to win back support from voters before a crucial by-election on July 30th, with many political pundits saying her party has a good chance of losing its majority in parliament. An outcome like that would cripple her efforts to push through legislation aimed at spurring economic recovery, overhauling government systems, and stamping out social ills accumulated during a rapid headlong drive toward industrialization over the past several decades. President Park's plan was to give a fresh impetus to her reform drive by shaking up her cabinet, but she ran into problems after her two prime minister nominees withdrew one after another in the face of public criticism over morality and controversial remarks on history. That and the administration's handling of the April ferry disaster have dented the president's approval ratings, which stood near 60% in March, but are hovering around 48%, the lowest since she took office in 2013. With confirmation hearings for new cabinet members taking place at the National Assembly through next week and July's by-elections just around the corner, the president may have to come up with new tactics to regain the people's trust. In what appears to be a step in that direction at the first meeting of her senior secretaries on Monday, President Park asked the political parties to seek ways to improve the confirmation hearing process and said her office will maintain a pool of talented candidates and keep track of their verification records. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye, who last week pledged to name a new presidential secretary to oversee personnel management, says her office will maintain a pool of talented candidates at all times and keep track of their verification records.
At the first meeting of her senior secretaries since retaining her prime minister following two nomination failures, President Park also asked the political parties to seek ways to improve the confirmation hearing process. As for a recent shooting spree at a general outpost near the inter-Korean border, the president said she was sorry that the incident happened, then asked the military to determine what caused the incident, who should take responsibility, and to come up with preventive measures.
Now, Korea's Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee passed a resolution earlier today condemning Japan's recent review of the 1993 Kono Statement, which acknowledged for the first time that the Japanese military had forced women into sexual slavery during World War II. It's just one part of the Korean government's plan to counter Tokyo's claims and lend support to the victims of Japan's sexual enslavement. Our Choi Yu-sun reports.
Calling Tokyo's review of the 1993 Kono Statement an historical provocation, Korean lawmakers in a resolution adopted on Monday accused Japan of contradicting itself by denying the essence of its past apology. The Abe administration recently claimed that Seoul and Tokyo negotiated the content of the apology after lacking evidence to confirm the Japanese military's wartime sex slaves were forced into prostitution. In the 1993 statement, Japan acknowledged its military was involved in the establishment and management of military brothels and that the coercion of women by private recruiters was done at the request of the military. The Korean lawmakers denounced the Japanese government for damaging the spirit of cooperative ties in Northeast Asia, warning such a provocative act would only serve to isolate Japan from the international community. The resolution also warned that Japan's attempts to transfer the responsibility of the sex slavery issue to Korea would further damage Seoul-Tokyo relations. Lawmakers called on Seoul to search for additional evidence that the Japanese military coerced women from Korea and other Asian countries to increase international pressure against Tokyo's historical distortions. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se at the parliamentary committee meeting vowed to respond firmly to any attempt by Tokyo to distort history. Seoul is expected to release a white paper on the so-called comfort women by July of next year, detailing the damage done to victims and exactly how the women were coerced by the Japanese military. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
North Korea sent an offer across the demilitarized zone on this Monday, calling for an end to all cross-border hostilities and slanderous comments. We have heard similar proposals in recent months, all of which have fallen apart shortly after they were made. But as our Shin Se-min reports, today's offer differs from the rest in at least one respect.
No military provocations from either North or South Korea starting at midnight this Friday, July 4th. That was a proposal made by the North National Defense Commission. Pyongyang's top military body also called on both sides to stop slandering each other. The statement makes specific mention of South Korea's joint military drills with the United States, dubbed the Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises, scheduled to begin this August, and calls for them to be halted while the 2014 Asian Games are taking place in the South Korean port city of Incheon. The North has previously said it would send athletes to the event, which runs from September 19th to October 4th. And experts say Monday's offer had Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to the South later this week in mind.
With President Xi's visit to Seoul, the North is trying to put the blame on the South for not expressing its will to ameliorate the stalled inter-Korean relationship. Pyongyang is also showing its discontent over the continuous joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington by mentioning the Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills.
Other experts see the North offer as a conciliatory gesture, pointing out that it uses softer language than past offers of the same ilk. It also draws a parallel to a joint communique agreed upon by the North and South on July 4, 1972, which outlined the steps for achieving a peaceful reunification. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
We're going to stay focused on North Korea. More than 2 months after 2 U.S. nationals were detained in North Korea on separate charges, Pyongyang says it's ready to indict the men. Our Connie Kim reports on the charges they currently face.
North Korea says it's planning to indict 2 U.S. citizens for carrying out what Pyongyang calls hostile acts against the state. The North's official Korean Central News Agency says evidence and testimony confirms previous suspicions about Matthew Todd Miller and Jeffrey Edward Fowle. Miller was arrested in early April after allegedly tearing up a tourist visa upon his arrival in the North and declaring he was seeking asylum. Fowle entered North Korea the same month. State authorities say the 56-year-old man was detained for so-called inconsistent acts, reportedly for leaving a Bible at the hotel where he was staying. Investigations into the two men will continue, and a North Korean court is expected to mete out punishments after their respective trials. Miller and Fowle represent the second and third U.S. citizens currently detained in the communist state. Korean-American Kenneth Bae has been in custody since November 2012 and is currently serving a 15-year sentence of hard labor under charges of trying to overthrow the government. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, 10 years ago today, the two Koreas began operation of their jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex in the North Korean border city.
Marking the occasion, we wanted to take a look at how far the Inter-Korean Cooperation Project has come in the last decade and see what we can expect in the decade to come.
So for that, we are joined live in the studio by our very own Unification Ministry correspondent, Hwang Sang-hee. Good evening to you, Sang-hee.
Good evening, guys. The Kaesong Industrial Complex has seen significant growth over the last 10 years as one of the last remaining Inter-Korean Cooperation projects. Now let's take a look at the charts here. The business park started out in 2004 with just 15 South Korean firms. Today we have 125 South Korean companies with factories running in Kaesong. The production volume has also increased. In 2005, the annual production volume was at around $15 million, and now it's at approximately $470 million. Now, that was cut in half last year when the factories were put out of commission for 5 months. But as you can see, the complex is recovering with the production figure at well over $100 million as of March this year. Around 3,000 North Koreans worked at South Korean factories in the complex 10 years ago, and today we have some 52,000 North Korean workers employed there.
Well, Sunny, the complex was suspended for 5 months last year after North Korea unilaterally suspended operations amid escalating inter-Korean tensions. Now, since operations resumed, the two Koreas have been working to improve its management, but, to us, it doesn't seem like it's been working very well.
That's right. They did form a joint committee on the management of the complex after the 5-month suspension as a means to prevent similar incidents from recurring again, but experts point to the root of the problem.
The two Koreas do not have a framework for ministerial-level dialogue, and almost all inter-Korean cooperation is at a standstill. On top of that, South Korea maintains its May 2010 sanctions against North Korea. These are at the root of the problems.
And of course, as May 2010 sanctions, we are talking about the economic sanctions imposed on the North by South Korea following North Korea's torpedo attack on South Korean warship Cheonan in 2010, which killed 46 South Korean sailors. Now, the Joint Management Committee met again last week, its 5th meeting in all and its first in 6 months, but they did not make any progress on key issues such as the installation of internet service and the implementation of an electronic entry system that would facilitate the commute for South Korean workers. Now, the electronic entry system has been ready for use since the beginning of this year, but the North is still mulling the idea.
It's hard to work with North Korea, that's for sure. And I understand South Korea has been working to globalize the complex. Also, that one effect that would have is to prevent North Korea from another unilateral shutdown.
Well, Daniel, the factory zone has seen a number of foreign investors visit the complex since the shutdown. In February, a Russian fisheries firm owned by a Korean-Russian consortium visited the complex and submitted a business proposal. And the next month, the Russian Minister for the Development of the Far East, Alexander Galushka, reached an agreement with North Korean Prime Minister Park Bong-ju in Pyongyang to discuss Russian investment in the complex. Then in April, around 40 German businessmen from companies like BMW and Bosch visited Kaesong. And last month, we saw 24 Norwegian businessmen and government officials make the trip there. Now, Seoul's Unification Ministry says around 20 foreign companies have shown interest in investing in the joint business park, but concerns about the stability there are holding them back.
So let me ask you, what is it about the Kaesong Industrial Complex that these businesses find so attractive?
Well, Ganyang, a South Korean businessman with factories in Kaesong told me that the average lifespan of a South Korean small and medium-sized enterprise is around 5 years, but even after 10 years, the businesses in Kaesong are flourishing. Now, the Kaesong complex offers cheap labor at a cost of around $150 a month per worker, and goods are transferred over land, which means they can be on the shelves the day they're manufactured. But there are risks as well.
The Kaesong complex is often affected by political tensions. The two Koreas must make a clear distinction between political tensions and economic cooperation so that companies in Kaesong can work freely.
Well, on the positive side, experts say that the Kaesong Industrial Complex can actually be seen as a good example of President Park Geun-hye's small steps towards reunification.
Right, Kaesong is quite unique. In most other factories, they worry about the employees putting up a bit of an uprising or expressing their frustrations. But here, it's usually the government doing that part there.
That's
well,
right.
Songi, we hope you have some better news next time we have you in the studio.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life, talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Well, no doubt about it, the rice market is a very sensitive one for this country, as Korea has once again delayed its decision on liberalizing the rice market.
It looks like we were delaying the inevitable. World Trade Organization's deadline is fast approaching. The government may not be able to put it off much longer. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Time is running out, but the Korean government is putting off a final decision on rice market liberalization. The government was going to announce its position over the issue at an economy-related ministers' meeting on Monday, but instead said more time was needed to reach a consensus.
We will gather more opinions from the parliament and other related parties to draw a reasonable conclusion on how to develop the nation's rice industry based on the analysis.
The delay comes amid strong protests by local farmers who say the market liberalization is all about protecting food sovereignty. The government is now likely to aim for mid-July after a public hearing on the issue at the National Assembly on July 15th. Korea must notify the World Trade Organization by the end of September on whether it plans to open its rice market. Under a 1994 agreement with the WTO, Korea had promised to liberalize its rice market, but because rice is a staple food of the nation, the government was allowed to put off the move for 20 years in exchange for gradually raising its rice import quota. The 20-year period is set to expire at the end of this year. The government earlier this month said it's moving toward opening up the rice market, saying that raising the import quota even more to delay opening the market simply costs too much. A high-ranking official at Korea's Agriculture Ministry says that while the official announcement has been delayed, the government maintains that rice market liberalization is inevitable. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Well, you know, smokers have it good here in Korea. They say cigarette prices are the lowest among OECD countries. And while there has been talk of raising tobacco prices for a long time, they have remained the same for 10 years.
Right. Korea has been called smokers' heaven for a long time, but it seems like enough is enough. Related ministries are making much more active efforts to make sure a price hike is pushed through. Here's our Kwon So-ah.
Just last week, Korea's Ministry of Health and Welfare released a shocking anti-smoking advertisement in the hope it would convince smokers to kick their habit. At a recent symposium held on World No Tobacco Day, the ministry said it will actively push ahead with the World Health Organization's recommendation to raise cigarette prices to bring down the country's high smoking rate. In Korea, you pay 2,500 won, or roughly $2.50 for a pack of 20 cigarettes. That's the cheapest out of the 41 OECD nations. A pack of cigarettes is more than 6 times more expensive in Norway than it is in Korea. Medical experts say the relation between the price of tobacco and quitting cannot be ignored. In fact, 10 years ago, when the price of cigarettes went up by around 50 cents, the smoking rate among men in Korea dropped from 58% in 2004 to 44% just 2 years later. But there's a reason why the government has failed on a number of occasions to push through with a raise. There are concerns people in the low-income bracket will be hit hardest, since a cigarette price hike also means a tax hike. The tax paid on tobacco products is the same for high or low-income people. Tobacco tax is also paid indirectly, meaning the tax is not collected by the government, but by tobacco companies. But as Finance Minister nominee Choi Kyung-hwan has said, although there is a perception welfare is placing a higher tax burden on the people, cigarette prices must be raised for the sake of public health. Last year, Korea's smoking rate was the second highest among OECD members, barely trailing Greece. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And let's continue on with our 2014 Brazil World Cup action, starting off with an exciting match which took place earlier today, the Netherlands taking on Mexico. I mean, it did start rather slow with both sides scoreless after the first half, but Giovanni Dos Santos scored the first goal of the match, giving Mexico the 1-0 lead. Mexico had it in the bag, but Wesley Sneijder in the 88th minute found the back of the net for the equalizer.
Well, the match looked like it was going into extra time, but a penalty is called in the dying seconds of the match as Huntelaar scores the game winner, helping the Netherlands advance to the quarterfinals with, I believe, a 2-1 win.
Meanwhile, with Greece taking on Costa Rica, scoreless first half, but Brian Ruiz in the 52nd minute gives Costa Rica the 1-0 lead, but another last-minute equalizer by Socrates Papastatopoulos.
And as the match goes into a penalty shootout, Costa Rica goes perfect on the spot kick, beating the Greek side 5-3 to advance to the next round.
Well, a national sports team returning home from a humiliating defeat often faces the wrath of angry fans. And Korea's national football players arrived back from the Brazil World Cup earlier this morning to something similar.
Well, head coach Hong Myung-bo, who blamed himself for the poor showing of the team's final loss of the tournament to Belgium, apologized in front of the Korean press and remained uncommitted about his own future.
We received a lot of support from the people, and I feel sorry for not being able to fulfill their expectations. In regards to my future plans, I'm not in a place to comment on it right now, but I know I'll make a good decision.
Midfielder Son Heung-min admitted that the team was unprepared for the World Cup, while team captain Koo Jae-chul was more optimistic, saying that they had gained valuable experience and that they have to show something 4 years from now.
I am devastated, and as a member of this team, I feel responsible for the poor result at the World Cup.
The Team Korea finished bottom of its group at the World Cup in one of its poorest showings in over a decade after defeats against Belgium and Algeria and a draw against Russia.
And today, on day 19 of the tournament, Algeria will make its best attempt at avenging one of its most heartbreaking defeats on the football pitch.
Algeria was eliminated from the 1982 finals in a controversial fashion after West Germany beat Austria 1-0 in the final group game, a result that sent West Germany through and left Algeria to pack their bags.
Well, the 2014 World Cup marks the first in which more than one African nation has made it past the group stage. Algeria plays Germany, and Nigeria will face off against a fearsome-looking France side in Brasilia in the day's other round of 16 match. Let's now turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center for a check on the weather forecast. Michelle, today is the last day of June, and it really is definitely starting to feel like summer.
Right. Today, the daytime highs hit the 30s in some regions, including Seoul.
And I believe there were some regions where there were showers with thunderstorms even.
That's right. It's been raining a bit in the Chungcheong-do and Gangwon-do provinces today, and we can expect more of these on and off showers across the nation until Wednesday. However, in the areas where rain isn't in the forecast, we can expect another hot and cloudy day due to a high pressure front. Now going over to our tomorrow's readings, Seoul will top out at 20 in the morning and up to 31 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 33 and 28 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 28, Dokdo in the mid-20s, while Mangungang tops out at 27. Well, as for the weather conditions at the World Cup in Brazil, thankfully there is no rain in the forecast, just cloudy conditions with rather cool temperatures compared to previous days. Now that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. That's all from us. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Moon Gun-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to the last day of June, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.